Point a telescope at the sky and you see stars and galaxies. Early astronomers pointed their instruments at the heavens, probably expecting to catch a glimpse of God, but it never happened. Just more of the same, planets and stars. This had nothing to do with the quality or the size of their telescope. They were simply asking it to do a job no telescope, however good, will ever be able to do. Here's the thing. We do the exact same move with the brain, and somehow we don't notice we're doing it. We take 3 pounds of tissue, wet and electrical, and fold it in on itself, and we ask it to hand us back the taste of coffee, the sting of grief, the plain fact of being someone rather than something. And when all it hands back is wiring, signals, chemistry, electrical noise, and never the taste or the sting itself, we call that a mystery waiting on more research. A puzzle for next century's neuroscience to crack. But what if that's the wrong question? Not how does matter make consciousness, but why did we ever think it could in the first place? Because the second question is the one nobody wants to deal with. This isn't a gap in our data. It's not a problem waiting for a bigger microscope or a faster supercomputer. It's a mismatch between the tool and the job. The same mismatch as the telescope and God, except we spent 400 years mistaking this for a research problem instead of what it actually is. And to see where that mismatch came from, you have to go back to a very specific moment, 1641. That's the year Descartes published the Meditations, and it's the year the modern problem of mind and matter got built, brick by brick, on purpose. Before that, this split didn't exist in anything like the form we assume today. The ancients, the medievals, they had a far more stitched together picture, where mind showed up inside nature itself, not floating somewhere outside it looking in. Descartes changed that. He split the being into 2 totally different kinds of substance. On one side, matter takes up space, has a location, bumps into other matter, plays by the rules of physics. On the other side, mind takes up no space at all, can't be weighted, can't be found anywhere. And then he shoved both of these into one skull and called it a person. You can already feel the problem coming. If mind takes up no space and matter is nothing but space and motion, how does one push the other around? A hand can push a lever. Force meets force. Motion causes motion. But a thought isn't made of force. So how does a thought move a hand? This became known as the interaction problem. And nobody, including Descartes, ever solved it cleanly. He gestured at the pineal gland, as if a gland could bridge 2 entirely different kinds of reality. It couldn't. It was a patch over a hole that never closed. And here's a part that gets left out. This split wasn't a discovery about the true structure of reality. It was a convenience. 17th century science needed a version of matter that was blank, mechanical, obedient to equations. Nothing but mass and motion and force. Mind had to go somewhere, so it got exiled into its own separate room, just so physics could get on with the business of predicting how billiard balls move. And once mind got thrown out of nature to keep the math clean, the whole modern problem of consciousness became unavoidable. We didn't discover a hard problem, we manufactured one, then spent centuries acting baffled that we couldn't climb back out of a hole we dug with our own hands. The question of mind and matter looks ancient. It's not. It's a few centuries old and it was optional. Before we dive in, if this kind of content resonates with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you. You'll find the link in the top comment below. Now let's get back into it. There is a name for what's going on here. A category error is what happens when you ask a question that doesn't fit the thing you're asking it of. What color is Tuesday? How much does justice weigh? Is jealousy north or south of the river? Every one of these questions is grammatically fine and completely empty, because color and weight and direction don't apply to the things you're pointing them at. The question isn't hard, it's malformed. Now look at what physics actually hands you when it describes matter. Mass, charge, position, motion. Relations between one particle and another. That's the full list. That's everything physics has ever said about the stuff the world is built from. And nowhere on that list, not even close, is there anything that resembles what it's like to taste coffee, or the particular dread that shows up at 3 a.m. for no reason. You can add up mass and charge and motion for 1,000 years, and you will never get a flavor or a mood out the other end, because flavor and mood were never the kind of thing that list was built to produce. Try it from another angle. A mirror can't give you a smell, not because the mirror is faulty, not because we haven't built a good enough mirror yet. Reflecting light and producing an odor are just two different jobs, and no amount of polishing the glass closes that gap. Asking matter to produce experience is the same kind of ask. It's not that we haven't measured hard enough. It's that measuring and experiencing are different jobs entirely. Here is where it gets sharp. Some thinkers looked straight at this mismatch and, instead of questioning whether matter was the wrong tool for the job, decided to question whether the job was even real. This is illusionism, and its most direct defenders argue that consciousness, the raw, felt quality of experience, doesn't actually exist. It just seems to. What you call the sting of pain or the redness of red is, on this view, a kind of trick your brain plays on itself. But watch what happens the moment you try to say that out loud. To seem to feel pain already is to feel something. The seeming is not a lesser version of the experience standing off to one side. The seeming is the experience. You can't peel away the feeling and leave the seeming intact because the seeming was never separate from the feeling in the first place. An illusion of experience, in the very moment it's happening, is already an instance of experience. There is no way to hollow it out from underneath because there is no underneath. That's the whole show. So denying consciousness to save materialism isn't an answer. It's giving up on the question while dressing it up as though you've answered it. And the stakes here aren't just academic. If experience isn't real, then nobody has ever actually suffered. Not from grief, not from torture. That should make you suspicious of the theory. So say you don't buy any of that. Say you still want to insist matter can explain the mind because Matter is solid ground. Matter is the stuff we can measure and weigh and predict. Here's the problem with that move. Physics was never in the business of telling you what things are. It only tells you how they behave. That sounds like a small distinction. It isn't. A physicist was once asked, plainly, what is an electron? And the honest answer he gave was this: an electron is that to which we attribute the properties of the electron. This is not a joke, and it's not a dodge dressed up as humility. It's an admission. Physics can tell you an electron's charge, its spin, how it behaves near a magnetic field, how it jumps when you fire a photon at it. What physics cannot tell you is what the electron actually is underneath all that behavior. Nobody knows. 100 years of most successful mathematics in human history, and the answer to what is this thing really is still a shrug wearing a lab coat. It gets stranger the deeper you go. Quantum physics. Physicists themselves don't agree on what it's actually telling us about the world underneath. There are camps, and you don't need the jargon to follow the disagreement. Some physicists say the equations describe the real world exactly as it is. Reality itself is that strange. Others say the equations only describe what we are able to know, and the strangeness is a fact about our current knowledge, not about the world. Here's the part that matters. No experiment tells us which camp is right. Not because we haven't run these tests yet, because no test could settle it, even in principle. So think about what that means for the confident version of materialism, the one that says consciousness is just matter, full stop, end of discussion. If physicists, the people who spent their entire careers staring directly at matter, can't agree on what matter fundamentally is, then consciousness is just matter isn't a settled fact. It's a guess wearing the clothes of certainty. It's borrowing confidence from a field that at its own foundation doesn't have that confidence to lend. So the theory that's supposed to explain the mind can't even explain the stuff sitting on the table in front of it. Set matter aside for a moment, because there's a deeper trap here, and it has nothing to do with electrons or wave functions. Even if you had the perfect, complete, no gaps anywhere account of the brain, you'd still run into it. Here's the trap. Every explanation of consciousness, no matter how detailed, no matter how many diagrams and arrows it comes with, is still something being explained to somebody. You can walk through the whole chain. Neurons firing, chemicals crossing the gap between one cell and the next, electrical signals racing down a wire of nerve fiber toward the brain. Lay out every single link in the brain with total precision. And at the very end of it, there is still a you sitting there receiving the whole description. And that receiving, the act of taking it in and understanding it, was never itself part of the explanation. It was assumed the entire time. Here's a plainer way to see it. To know anything at all, you already have to be aware. Not aware of this or that in particular, just aware, period. The bare fact of being a witness to anything happening at all. And that base awareness can't be built by stacking up smaller pieces that aren't aware. Take something with zero awareness, put 1,000 of them together, and you still have zero awareness times 1,000. Unawareness added to unawareness doesn't creep across some threshold into awareness, no matter how many times you add it up. There is no line you cross by piling up more parts. This is the real reason mechanism keeps failing here, and it was never a matter of missing detail. Give it every wire, every synapse, every chemical gradient mapped down to the atom, and you don't get a knower out the other end. You just get a much more detailed wiring diagram. More detailed describing the machine tells you more about the machine. It never once hands you a witness standing behind the machine watching it run. You can try adding zero as many times as you like. It's still zero. Now, none of this proves some grand spiritual system waiting in the wings. It doesn't hand you a soul, an afterlife, a cosmic plan. All it does is clear the ground. It shows that the confident version of materialism, the one that struts around saying the mind is nothing but neurons and everyone who disagrees just hasn't read enough science, was never actually earned. That confidence was borrowed, not paid for. So what's left standing once you clear the ground? One serious attempt worth naming is panpsychism. The idea goes like this. Maybe experience doesn't have to emerge from zero experience, because some faint trace of it was already there, baked into the most basic stuff of the universe all the way down. Not thoughts, not feelings, nothing like a mind sitting inside an electron, just some minimal spark of what it's likeness at the ground floor of reality itself. If that's true, you never need the impossible leap from nothing to something. Experience doesn't get invented halfway up the chain. It was already there at the bottom, waiting to be gathered up. It's a real answer to a real problem, and it deserves to be taken seriously as one. But it comes with a cost, and the cost has a name, the combination problem. Nobody, not one serious thinker working on this, has an account of how billions and billions of these tiny specks of experience add up into a single unified you, sitting there receiving these words, having one continuous point of view rather than a billion scattered ones. Add a raindrop to a raindrop and you get a bigger puddle. You don't get a single mind that feels like one thing from the inside. Quantity doesn't buy you unity. So panpsychism dodges one impossible leap and lands you facing a different one. And here's where the honest move is to just stop pushing. Not to force a resolution, not to grab whichever theory sounds cleanest and declare the case closed. The honest position is to say plainly, we've cleared away one bad answer without yet having a finished one to put in its place. That's not a failure of the argument, that's just where the argument actually leads. Go back to the telescope one more time. Point it at the sky as long as you like, build it as powerful as you like, and you will never see God. Not because the telescope needs an upgrade. Because seeing God was never a job a lens could do in the first place. Matter and experience may be exactly like that. Not a lens waiting on redesign. A job outside its power from the start. So this was never really about which lab experiment to run next, which brain scan might finally close the gap, which better instrument might catch the moment neurons turn into feeling. It's about whether the whole frame we handed this question, matter in, mind out, was ever built to answer it at all. Say it plainly without softening it. Matter as physics actually defines it is relation, structure, behavior. That's the full inventory. And behavior alone has never once, in any experiment, in any equation, in any lab anywhere on Earth, produced so much as a flicker of what it's like to be something. Not a hint, not a trace. Zero. Here is the quiet irony sitting underneath all of it. The people most certain that matter explains mind are again and again the very people who looked closest at matter and who admit when you catch them off guard that they don't actually know what it is. That's not a contradiction they're hiding. It's one they learn to live with. So there is no doctrine waiting at the end of this to replace the one we took apart. No tidy system standing in for materialism's ruins. Just a plain admission that the mystery is real, that it hasn't been resolved, and that is worth living with rather than pouring a new layer of concrete over it and calling it settled. You are the one thing in the whole universe. You don't need a theory to know you're here. If this resonated with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you there, and you'll also receive my newsletter with thoughts and inspiration behind each video. You'll find the link in the top comment below.